and welcome to this episode of Focus On with me, Kyamkhetsa Mosipeleng. We are in Cape Town at the Africa Energy Week 2024 edition, where a number of stakeholders from investors, industry leaders and government officials from across the continent have gathered to discuss some of Africa's most pressing energy issues. We spoke to a number of representatives on what they're doing to lay the groundwork on building up Africa's energy future. You are the technology company that assists in terms of reducing emissions, but as well as balancing the growing energy needs. And when we take in particularly the case for Africa, as we're not high emitters, but our need to create access is considerably high. I want you to talk about the digitalization and processes that you go through to balance those two aspects.
Absolutely, no.
Yeah.
Great question, Kaimo. So digitalization does play a key role. As we know, in the oil and gas industry, we generate significant amount of data. So the ability for us to harness the power of this data, to be able to generate data-driven insights and allow the driving performance is absolutely key. There's been studies run that digital solutions reduce the cost by 10%, significantly reduce the time to make decision, estimated by about 70%, and also impacts the carbon footprint highly. This is a journey that we've been going, but in the industry, we've been actually deploying a lot of digital technology all across the board. I have a few examples that I'd like to share with you, and we're implementing all throughout the life cycle of the field, from exploration to production, development, all the way down to abandonment. So a few examples that we have here in Africa has been, I think the one that stands out the most is on the drilling automation side, which we had a very interesting project with ENI in Congo, which used digital technology to enable autonomous drilling, which significantly reduced the time to drill by saving nearly 2 weeks in 3 wells, which is remarkable. The cost saving that we can count on, the increase of performance, as well as the reduction of carbon footprint is absolutely remarkable. But there are other examples that I can lie on. You know, the time in the past, the time from discovery to production used to be years and years. So today, with advancement in digital technology, the cycle time can be significantly reduced to months and weeks. So allowing assets to be generating value immediately right after discovery, which is something that we see a lot of potential in the continent as well.
And continuing on conversations on innovation and the turnaround time towards meeting Africa's energy needs, I want to talk about Africa's energy mix, particularly putting into focus the interest into hydrocarbons.
Yep.
Just paint a picture for us, and also balancing the need to industrialize and grow our economic interests as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's known the sad reality of energy poverty in the continent, and the quest and our quest as a company, as SLB, actually aligns very much in line with this quest to address the energy poverty that we have in the continent. So it's 600 million people that don't have access electricity, more than 900 million people that don't have access to cleaning technology, clean cooking technology. So by increasing the hydrocarbon, for instance, the gas, which is by increasing the gas utilization in the continent, will allow us to reduce the biomass, which is the main source of energy today for the dirty cleaning technologies. Just by doing that, we'll continue to maintain the lungs of the earth, which I like to call the trees, and in that place we replace it with gas, which allows people to reduce the overall emissions. So that would be a good, simple but a very effective way for us to reduce even the small but rather still a carbon footprint that we have across the continent. So that's at the macro level. But at macro level, as far as the resources, it's known that the countries across the continent, or even in the world, those that have high levels of energy resources, if you look at just the GDP per capita, they tend to be higher than the countries that don't have energy resources. So for countries that have this potential, converting them from resources to actual energy that can export allows to fuel their economies as well. By fueling the economies will create more jobs and ultimately creating economical benefits for the population of this country. So we do appreciate the fact that the climate crisis is a reality, but with the use of technology and with the collaboration across all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, I think we should be able to significantly reduce that impact.
And I appreciate that you've touched on the need to essentially develop the economy around these areas that hold a lot of potential. I just want to zero in on terms of localization.
Yes.
What is the importance of developing local content, but more importantly as well, in a way that will increase sustainable development? As you've mentioned, the gap is still quite significantly high. What is the role of sustainable development in the local context to assist with that?
30 years ago, when I joined the company in Angola, it was in line of the quest of the company to go into a country to hire, train, develop, and expose nationals onto the world stage. So I've been very privileged to be part of this program. So I've been a lot of other people within the company that I work for at SLB. So at SLB, we really look at three main things. We look at people development, human capital development. We look at capacity building, and then finally we look at impact to the community. So the human capital development is what I highlighted the figure of 80% of the workforce to be national. So we really strive to go everywhere that we operate to hire the best and the brightest people, to develop them so they can support and manage the business in the country that they operate. And by doing this, we look really all across the value chain, not just hiring the people from the universities or technical schools, but even going into the community with the program that we have, which is called SEED, which is SLB Excellence in Education and Development, which basically spearheads the interest of STEM disciplines into the kids, so they can be learning and getting excited about math and physics and sciences, so they can pursue engineering careers in their lives. We also collaborate a lot with technical schools and universities by having an ambassador program, which we develop a network of universities across the continent where senior representatives of SLB establish this close relationship with universities to support them with the programs, provide internship and scholarships for students and things of that sort. And at a higher level, we have what we call the Faculty of the Future, which is an absolutely amazing program, which is sponsored by the SLB Foundation, which provides opportunity for advanced educational STEM-related education for women. So this also allows people to go and get really good degrees in world-class universities across the world. And one of them actually is the University of Stellenbosch here in Cape Town, which we have some of the cohorts to come and do their degrees here. So this is really something that we cherish a lot, and is something that we'll continue to do. Now, as far as capacity building, we do our best to incorporate local national suppliers into our supply chains. So by onboarding them into our supply chain network, and also having them to be part of our product and service delivery process. This is something that we've been doing over the years, and we have some very good examples where we started from entrepreneurs that have partnered with us, and today they are established big corporations. That's with the big ones. But we also partner a lot with the national companies on training, development, and technology adoption, with the private oil companies. Just really an array of collaborations that we do across the value chain.
As a key stakeholder, I would really like to draw in your expertise in terms of Africa's case, particularly its need to decarbonize in line with the rest of the globe, but it's also unique needs as it needs to increase access to energy. What is that picture like for the continent?
Okay, so this is a very important question because we're very clear about we need to transition, the world need to go green, it's our planet, we need to take care of it. But we need to do it in the African context so we can do it right. If you look at what's happening in Africa now, if you have 600 million already don't have access to electricity, which mean, and if you look at the statistics in the hospitals, around 500,000 people die because of this biomass burning for them at home. And at the same time, you have around 400 million that don't have clean water access because there is no desalination, no electricity. And the last calculation of this is like around 400 million deaths, not alone the people who got sick. We're talking about death cases. Looking at this context, give us to think that we need to transition Africa, but we need to do it correctly. Because also, parallel to this case, we have also countries in Africa that their economy really dependent on oil and gas. And we cannot just unplug and say transition tomorrow, but we have to have a plan to take them there. So having looked at all of this context and understanding that Africa has to be done in a gradual manner, while at the same time we see that while we're having gaps in our financing, like in oil and energy, around 40 billion at least, and around the infrastructure, 70 billion to 100 billion, coupled with international financier pulling out of the continent. This is a recipe of disaster if we don't put the right financing in place behind the African people and behind the African banks and countries. So the reason why we needed a bank in the middle, like Energy Bank, is that we need someone who will take the context of Africa, transition slowly Africa into the cleaner energy, but at the main time does not leave them alone. We keep financing their projects, their infrastructure, their oil until we can go to gas. And at the same time, African Bank will create capacity for which we can start to even more focus on green energy and transition, helping those economies to diversify. So it is part of a very critical plan for Africa to transition into the right type of energy, but in a way that does not create disaster for the people or the countries.
So you've painted a picture in terms of the need for Africa's energy mix and not the complete disincentivizing those economies that are still reliant on oil and gas. But another aspect is the money, the financing that is needed, particularly for the need for an African energy bank to come in and solve that financing gap. One, just give us an outlook in terms of the current finance gap and some of the barriers that are the reason as to why inroads are not being made to achieve this goal faster.
Okay, so as we discussed, the gap is at least 40 billion plus in energy and 70 billion plus in infrastructure for energy and even infrastructure to transfer energy. But the reason why is not only the withdrawal of international funds slowly, but also because I think government need to adopt more policies and be more agile and aggressive into implementing structure of PPPs and getting the private sector engaged. They need to work with multilaterals and other and strengthen their multilaterals. If countries around Africa look at the strength that they will have if their multilaterals and their own banks are strong in terms of putting their reserve with them, in terms of putting capital with them, they will have the bank that will carry them when they want to develop their plans. The other thing is there's a lot of work that we can do with ECAs, with different countries around the world, like the GCC and the others, to attract it. So there is a gap, there is a challenge that we need all to be more agile because we cannot be late to addressing this issue and we need to work very fast. But this time there is a ways that people can now maneuver into to secure this. One of them is the creation of Energy Bank to collect this together and really focus the continent's resources into the content development. It's very critical, and a lot of this discussion also goes into how can countries use their resources to build capital for developments. And if you look at the raw resources, so the capital is famous of exporting raw material, not value-added material. So most of our countries export cotton, and with the same cotton they import the garment of the same cotton they exported at a much expensive more price. They export oil and get the refined oil. They export wood and then buy furniture. And it's a story that is not really good for the capital. And this is where we are helping. If we can help more into its value addition, we create capacity that we can do towards this project. So a lot of work we're trying to do around the capital, the countries, us and the other multilaterals that need to take us up to the value chain. Some of our raw material need to go into creating capital for us, and some of our raw material need to go into value addition so that we create more margins for us. And it's a story of balance between them.
Just give us a wrap of the week and some of the key conversations you've observed, but more importantly, how this year fares in comparison to last year.
We are at the fourth edition of this event. It has been a smashing success. We have had the creme de la creme of the oil and gas and energy industry gathered here in Cape Town. The world has come to Africa. The world has come to Cape Town to talk about, an issue that is very important for Africans and for the rest of the world, which is energy security and equitable energy accessibility. So we're here. Some of the topics that were discussed up till now relate to increasing financing for access to resources that will provide access to energy for Africans, and this is very important. There's been discussions about the role that African players have in the global energy market. It's a very important resource for development and growth in the world, and it's very important that we are here in Africa talking about this. So we're very pleased that it has been positive. We've had ministers, various honorable ministers from Africa, Secretary General of OPEC. We have had Secretary General of APPO, Association of African Producing Countries, discussing, and the discussion has been very positive in a sense that we are bringing local issues, regional issues, and continent issues, and discussing here with the global audience. So yes, that has been something that has been different than last year, is the fact that we had many more companies, different areas of the business, such as the trading sides of business of the oil companies and energy companies have been coming here more than in previous years. More financing institutions are coming to the table because that has been really an issue in the past. Is the conversation of energy transition has slowed down investment in the extractive industries and in the energy industry, but I think the world has noticed that energy security is as important, if not more important, than energy transition. So this is where we are today, and we are at a good place.
Yeah. I also want to just draw in two key points that you've mentioned. One, the question on Africa's energy security, but also setting up the continent for the world stage. How important is the use of domestic markets to, one, include the growth of Africa whilst working towards eradicating energy poverty as soon as 2030?
Kemal, this is a very important question, and this is a business, but at the same time you are also making decisions that impact people's lives, and there is always a balance that has to be found between extracting resources to be able to cater for the local market, but also cater for the international market. A lot of the African economies also depend on the foreign exchange gains that they get from exporting some of these resources. So there has to be a balance. But I believe that all in all, the African governments in general are tending towards a balanced approach whereby minerals are explored to be able to benefit the local and regional markets, but at the same time continue to supply the international markets where they traditionally have been doing business with for over 40 years. So in that sense, it is very important to be able to continue to provide a steady supply of what the world needs, and energy is the number one thing that we need to basically develop and survive and grow. Africa, or most of developing Africa, is at the cusp of an industrial revolution, and you cannot power, no pun intended, an industrial revolution without energy. So in that sense, I believe that strategies are being followed to be able to look at this aspect. The West is going through let's say, a digital revolution, and they are looking back at what the impact on the environment some of these extractive industries have had. But it's, to be honest, unfair to Africa, where we have contributed, very, very, very small amount to that aspect, but then now we are not allowed to develop our resources to look at an issue which is, providing a solution for 600 plus million people that don't have access to energy. So, it's very important to be in a platform such as Africa Energy Week, where we can talk about this very serious issue and continue to drive a narrative that focuses on what is a priority for us as Africans.
We are towards the latter end of the African Energy Week, certainly a week of great interventions and great decisions being made. Your wrap of the week, and in your opinion, how does this year fare in comparison to last year?
This is an amazing year. I mean, we've seen double the numbers from last year. We've seen double the numbers of deals that have been signed compared to last year. But also we've seen double the engagement of Africans and the international communities as we saw last year. You know what that means? People are paying attention to Africa. The world is listening to Africa. Africa's voice is getting out to the world. But also it means that Africa is ready for investment. Money is coming into the continent because not only are we seeing projects, but we're seeing bankable projects, and people are really going into shovel-ready projects, bankable projects. South Africa is more than ever even committed to upstream oil and gas exploration. You're seeing that with Nigeria, where a lot of deals that were stuck are being approved. You're seeing regulatory reforms in Angola and making it more to incentivize investment, making it more friendly. You're seeing Namibia continuing its trajectory of new discoveries, new players like Petrobras coming into Africa, African players acquiring assets from international oil company. I'm excited about what I see here. I'm excited about what's going on, and I think the future is just better, but we need to work hard at it to keep it going.
I also want to circle back when you officially opened the proceedings and your welcome address on day one. I understand a recurrent theme was you saying drill baby drill. I want to tap into that particular saying and also the follow-up event or demonstration where climate activists were, I guess, putting forward their agenda against that statement. Your thoughts or your words on that?
Drill baby drill is very important because we need to have a drill baby drill energy policy that's going to help. The climate activists calling for climate justice, they are right to call for climate justice. I want climate justice. Everybody wants climate justice. You know why? We've produced less than 3% greenhouse gas emission. We should not be tagged as the climate criminals of the world. So while these latte liberators believe that we should stop producing oil and gas in Africa, they should be looking at the United States that is funding this protest against us. Europe that is funding this protest against us. They're using coal. They're giving out licenses in the North Sea in the United Kingdom. They're opening new coal mines in the UK. The US is the largest producer of oil and gas. How dare they turn to Africans with 600 million people that don't have no access to electricity, 900 that have no access to clean cooking technologies, and tell us to stop. We can't stop. We need oil and gas to drive up Africa's industrialization. We're not against decarbonization, but guess what? The wealthy nations need to decarbonize. African nations need to industrialize. That's why drill, baby, drill is important. It has driven human flourishing. It has driven Western civilization. Africa has to industrialize. And if you're going to industrialize, you need to make energy cheaper. You need to make energy safer, secured, and produce it sustainably. So drilling is important. But we drill cleaner, better, and more efficient wells as we can do today.
I also just want to circle back to your tagline, making energy poverty history by 2030, which is a year that is not too far away from now. What is the progress, in your opinion, and is that a goal that is attainable?
Our energy poverty numbers are increasing, sadly so. We used to say about 600 million. I think right now we're somewhere around 700 million. By 2030, if there is inaction, we'll get to about 1.1 billion according to our counting. That is wrong. That is not good. Because if we get to 1.1 billion people without electricity, then we'll be seeing at least 1.5 billion without clean cooking in a continent that is going to be about 2 billion people. That is unacceptable. You cannot industrialize and develop without energy. That's why making energy poverty history, it's so important. You make energy poverty history, then you talk about a transition. Where do you want us to transition to? From the dark to the dark? Nobody wants to breathe clean air in the dark. They need to have energy. South Africa, Africa's most industrialized country, used to go 8 to 10 hours a day of load shedding without electricity. That is unacceptable. We need to produce every drop of hydrocarbons we can find to get Africa out of energy poverty. But also we need to ask our governments to provide market-friendly policies. We need to look at free markets, limited government, individual liberty. We need to look at fiscals, tax incentives, because when we do that, we make it attractive. You know, money is not competing today between Mozambique and Zimbabwe or Nigeria and Ghana. Money goes where it's welcome. So we're competing for capital with Guyana. We're competing for capital with Suriname and Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So we need to be attractive. We need to take care of our both ground risk issues in Africa to make us competitive so that money can come in and we can make energy poverty history.
Making energy poverty history by 2030 is the goal, but a lot remains to be seen on how that metric will fare 6 years from today. But that's how we wrap up this episode of Focus On with me, From me and the CNBC Africa team, it's goodbye for now.